quick start tutorial. The purpose of the chord tool is to expand the number of chords that you use and also expand how you use them in your music. In this video, we'll cover the basics of how to use the chaos feature and the prototyping grid, along with some background on chord theory. There are 5 main ways to use the chord tool right away, and I'm certain you can discover other ways to use it even more creatively. For one, you can use it to discover new chords that you may not have heard before by browsing a catalog of over 12,000 chords. You can also create riffs using a mixture of chords and individual notes. You can create strumming patterns by playing a chord over a beat pattern. You can create chord progressions, which are like a series of strumming patterns. And you can create background ambience with gently flowing sustained chords. As you've probably guessed, clicking the big yellow chaos button will let ProtoMusician create a chord pattern for you. And like the beat, scale, and melody tools, you can change the chaos rules to customize the type of chord pattern you might be looking for. You can set the tempo, specify a key to play in, limit the number of notes in the chords, and so on. Now there's one very important feature that you should understand right away, and that's the mode. The mode is located in the upper right corner of your screen. When you first open the chord tool or click the new button, the mode is set to riffing. In riffing mode, you're free to check and uncheck the boxes in the prototyping grid and create chords in a freestyle manner. In the other modes, you won't be able to edit the grid freestyle. Instead, you'll be able to choose chords that are then transferred to the grid. For now, let's start with riffing mode. Click the new button to clear the screen. You'll see that we're in riffing mode by default. Now each column of checkboxes represents one of the 16 opportunities to play in a beat pattern. And you can turn on a column or turn it off using the checkbox at the bottom. The checkboxes in the columns are the possible notes to include in a chord. Each chord can contain up to 4 notes at a time. They can also span up to 2 octaves in pitch. You'll notice that some rows of checkboxes are missing. As will be discussed later, only the notes found in a major scale are shown right now. If you change the scale to, say, a minor pentatonic, then a different set of rows will be shown. And the same is true for all 2047 different scales already discussed in the scale tutorial. Let's clear the screen again and go back to a major scale. We'll choose a beat pattern and build some chords on each of the checked columns, and then click play. This is a very basic riff made of individual notes and chords, all played over a beat pattern. In this example, we made up the chords to use, but there's also the catalog, which contains over 12,000 chords that you can browse, similar to the beat and scale catalogs. A chord is simply a set of notes that are played at the same time. The catalog will display only chords that have notes from the selected scale. Since we have the major scale selected, ProtoMusician has cataloged 1,471 chords that have notes directly from the major scale. Browse the catalog, listen to chord samples. If you find one that you like, transfer it to the prototyping grid by clicking the little arrow above the desired column. Everything we discussed up to this point works for riffing mode. Now we're going to switch to strumming mode. A strumming pattern, which is a very common technique for rhythm guitar, is made by taking a single chord and playing it over the beat pattern so it sounds like this. When you switch from riffing mode to strumming mode, you'll notice the small arrow buttons above the grid column disappear. The catalog opens up, and a new set of controls appears below the catalog. If you try to edit the grid, a message will pop up explaining that it's not allowed. In strumming mode, you'll select one chord that's played across the measure and choose what beat pattern is used to play it on. In the drop-down below the catalog, choose a Roman numeral. The Roman numeral here is the same as the Roman numeral next to the grid. What this does is tell ProtoMusician to open the catalog and show only chords that start on the Roman numeral which corresponds to a step of the scale. Let's pick Roman numeral 4, and you'll see the catalog has found 176 chords in the major scale that start on 4. Click the random chord button and you'll see chords appear both on the keyboard and to the left of the grid. They will all start on the Roman numeral 4. Listen to some of them. When you find one you like, click the transfer button under the catalog. Now select a beat pattern that you'd like the chord to be played on by checking the desired boxes. Or here's a tip, click the small button in the lower right corner and ProtoMusician will suggest a beat pattern. And click play. You can edit the beat pattern or click the random beat button to make changes. Or you can change the chord. Now let's talk about chord progressions. A chord progression is like a series of strumming patterns played one after another. Click New Prototype, then you can select a mode to create up to a 12 chord progression. You can also choose the scale or key to play from. Go ahead and choose a Roman numeral for each position, search for a chord at each position, and then transfer it. Then click play. Another way to create a progression is to take an existing strumming pattern and click the Add button. A strumming pattern is simply a one-chord progression. Let's take a saved strumming pattern and turn it into a 4-chord progression. Randomly choose some new chords and click play. So to recap so far, a chord is a set of notes played at the same time. A riff is a mixture of chords and individual notes played over a beat pattern. A strumming pattern is the same as a chord played over a beat pattern. And a chord progression is a series of strumming patterns played one after another. Another effect created using chords is ambience or background. You can create ambience using chord progressions with only the first beat played. Take this example. Select 4-chord progression. Select a big sounding instrument such as FX or synthesizer strings. Select sustain so that each note is held longer. Uncheck all of the beats except the first one. Select chords to your liking and click play. As you can see, there are many uses for the Chord Tool, and there's also a lot more detail that will be covered in future tutorials. This was just meant to give a quick start. But before we end here, I'd like to discuss some of the logic that the tool is built around and the similarities and differences with traditional music theory. A chord can technically contain an unlimited number of notes, but chords with more than about 4 or 5 notes can start to sound cluttered. Some musicians believe a chord has to have at least 3 notes. ProtoMusician, on the other hand, defines a chord as 2 or more notes. ProtoMusician also includes single notes in the catalog, just so that riffs can be made. For practical reasons, and to make the catalog more user-friendly, ProtoMusician only catalogs and plays up to 4-note chords. But even with these limitations, I think you'll find that 12,000 chords at your disposal is adequate. Now, where do these chords come from? Chords are made by drawing notes out of a particular scale, similar to melodies. But instead of playing the notes one after another, chord notes are played at the same time, or harmonized. So within the chord catalog, you'll need to specify which scale you want the chord to be made from. Get it? And to carry the thinking forward, each scale pattern offers a different set of possible notes that the chord can be made from. Scale number 1360, the major scale, has 7 unique notes in it. The Roman numerals are used to designate the degree or step number of each note in the scale like this. At each degree, there are a handful of chords that can be made. For the major scale, there are 378 chords starting on the Roman numeral 1, 299 on Roman numeral 2, 232 on Roman numeral 3, and so on for a total of 1,471 chords. Switch to another scale, like 204, and it only has 4 degrees, or 4 Roman numerals. In total, there are only 163 catalog chords that match scale number 204. Switch to the chromatic scale, which includes all notes, and you'll see that the catalog opens up to 12,950 chords. And the 12,951st is blank, and that's how the chord catalog is constructed. One other clarification around naming is with keys, such as in the key of C major. A key name indicates both a starting note and a scale name. ProtoMusician lets you choose both, as shown in the examples, but some musicians will contend that you can't just choose any starting note and any scale and call it a key. For example, starting on C and playing on the major pentatonic scale is possible in ProtoMusician, but traditional theory would disallow calling it the key of C major pentatonic. Rather, theory would still say that it's the key of C major. The reason is because the major pentatonic scale is simply made from 5 of the 7 notes that are in the major scale. 2 of them are just ignored while playing. It really doesn't matter what you call a key or not. ProtoMusician allows you to start on any note and play notes from any scale in the catalog, period. So for sake of convention with ProtoMusician, you can say the key of C major, the key of C, scale 1360, the key of D, scale 254, or whatever you want. The position is what measure of the chord progression you're working on, from 1 to 12, and the degree is what note of the scale your chord starts on, and that's marked by a Roman numeral. Like the other tools in ProtoMusician, it's entertaining just to browse through the catalog or see what chaos is going to play next. But let's explore how you might use the Chord Tool for real applications. You can start by just learning some new, interesting chords from the catalog and playing them on your instrument. Or let ProtoMusician help you develop a riff. You can learn a new strumming pattern along with a new chord. Or you can learn a chord progression on your instrument. Or let ProtoMusician play a chord progression while you improvise a melody or solo to it. Or you can do fun stuff like play ProtoMusician through other electronic effects. And you can use a chord progression as the basis for a verse or chorus and begin to write a new song. Experimentation, discovery, and creativity. That's what ProtoMusician is all about. Be brave and try new chords and new progressions. Expand your repertoire as a musician. That's it for now. Have fun.